change something about yourself that's deeply rooted. These are the hardest changes to make because our patterns are so fixed. If we don't take consistent action, we'll easily fall back into our old ways of doing things. This week, I talk with Paul Zolman, who shares how growing up in a family of abuse taught him to be a very angry person. Ultimately, however, he decided that he didn't want to be angry anymore and found a way to shift from anger to love. Here, Paul shares how understanding and applying love languages helped him to retrain his brain to see the good in everyone. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Welcome to the Impostor Syndrome Files. My name is Kim Menninger, and as an executive coach and former high-tech leader, my personal mission is to help professionals overcome imposter syndrome so that you can advance your career with confidence. Each week, I interview a new guest who brings a powerful perspective to this conversation, including personal stories, best practices, and new insights. The more we talk about this issue, the more we destigmatize imposter syndrome, recognize that we're not alone, and empower ourselves to access the tools and resources that can help us and those around us. Thank you so much for listening and for sharing with others you think would benefit from this conversation. Welcome, Paul. I'm so excited for our conversation today, and I'd love to start by inviting you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kim. Pleasure to be with you today. I'm actually what I like to call a love language linguist, and it's kind of one of those titles that you give yourself after you become something. You know, when you're creating a company, you're going to call yourself the president of the company, or you're going to call yourself the founder of the company, and you kind of work into that title. So love language linguist is something that I've kind of worked into, but while I'm on my way to get there, there is that imposter syndrome that happens. I had a problem with anger, and it's only because I was raised in an angry family when I was younger that I had there was a lot of abuse going on, a lot of put downs, a lot of sarcasm, a lot of just an angry humor, angry vocabulary, a lot of anger that was going on. And I had the residual anger left over into my adulthood. And so by the time I'm 35 years old, I'm still blaming my father for all the social awkwardness, all the personal awkwardness that I'm having in my life. By that time, I'm a CFO of a public company, and I'm still feeling that syndrome. I gotta quit this anger. If I want to go anywhere else, I need to be a little bit nicer guy. And I was saying stuff that was more negative. I said, I don't want to be angry, kind of a double negative sentence that really I figured out that only in math do double negatives work, that you can multiply two negative numbers together to make something positive. It doesn't work in relationships. So when I started to realize that, Kim, that it really, really started me thinking, how am I going to overcome this? And so I stopped blaming my father for all these things, realized I was responsible for my own actions at age 35. And at age 35, my father had been dead already 7 years. Here I was blaming a guy that wasn't even around, nothing that I could go to, nobody that I could go to resolve the issues at all, just blaming that person. So I had to really get out of that culture somehow. And it's kind of scary when you move from one culture or one brand or one label to another label. You're always going to have that imposter syndrome. So am I really loving when I used to be totally angry all the time? And then when you're moving from one sector to another sector, you're always going to have that imposter syndrome like that. And I was having that, but I created something that finally started to work for me. So I was studying. There was a time about 15 years ago that I was single. The anger was contributory to the demise of my first marriage. But so at that time, I'm single. I find someone that I'm serious about. It's time. I'm number 10 of 11 children, Kim. So I have to have Big Brother approval. I have to take this person up for Big Brother approval. And so I'm going 300 miles north. I take this woman into my brother's house, and my sister-in-law pulls her aside and says, The only emotion that the Zolman family learned growing up was anger. At first, I denied it, said, then it made me mad. And so I am verifying exactly what her words are saying, what an outsider says about our family. And I realized that, if that's the perception of the Zolman family, I've got to change that perception right now, or I've got an opportunity to change that perception. So I started reading the color code and I started reading the five love languages and really liked the principles of the five love languages. But from where I came from, I didn't get it. You mean, Kim, or Dr. Chapman, you mean I'm supposed to guess what Kim's love language is and cater to that? And then we'll be buddies? That doesn't sound like love. I didn't come from love, but I didn't sound like love either. And I'm a bad guesser. And that's why I have the kind of relationships I have, because I'm a bad guesser. That just wasn't working for me, Kim. So the second thing that Dr. Chapman has is that, well, if you take this survey, then you can find out what your love language is. Well, Dr. Chapman, what am I supposed to be doing with that? Advertising? Hello, Kim. I'm gifts. What do you have for me today? Or I could wear a badge. What? This is my love language. I'm gifts. What do you have? Bring it on. And it's just so awkward. I'm done with awkward. Really, it's been awkward all my life trying to figure out how to get rid of anger. And being angry in public situations is not exactly something that people want to come back right to you. It repels people, and I did not want that. So what I decided is I contacted Dr. Chapman and said, I had this idea. So contacted him, asked him, are you licensing those little icons that you have for each one of the love languages? And his attorney wrote back and said, no, we're not doing that. And it's 30 years old. They're kind of dated, and I thought they were not really that attractive. So I thought I'd make my own. But at first, I went to my attorney close by, and he's a copyright attorney, intellectual property attorney. He said said theory, like the love language theory, is not copyrightable. Application is. So they weren't doing it as a game. So he kind of gave me permission that I could make my own icons and create my own game. So that's what I did. I created a little cube that on the cube, it has each one of the love languages on it. You can see this is a person holding a platter like they're serving somebody. That would be the icon for service. The very common two hands together forming a heart. But on this particular icon, I have a conversation flout. So these would be the words from the heart. That would cover the words. Now I've got a hand holding an hourglass. That represents time. A hand holding a gift. And then two hands together. So those would be the five love languages. Two hands together would be touch. Gifts would be gifts, of course. 6 sides on the cube. This one is surprise me. So Kim, there's just 2 instructions. Roll the die every day. That's the love language you practice giving away all day that day. And what I found is that while I'm giving a love away, my whole paradigm shifts. No longer am I stacking annoyances like my father did and stacking until I have that flash of anger that comes out. I'm in my mind, I'm saying, what's wrong with that person? Sometimes I say it out loud. What's wrong with that person? And it's just, that was how it all started, to get to that angry outburst. Now it's what's right with that person. What can I love about that person? So it's a paradigm shift in the total opposite direction. This is uncharted territory for someone that came from anger, that you're trying to watch for what's right about those people. And in uncharted territory, you get that imposter syndrome. Well, I'm lost. Where am I? What am I supposed to be doing here? I don't belong here. And you get all those feelings of being an imposter in uncharted territory. But you got to keep going in that territory to become familiar with that territory, especially in the good things. That when you're familiar with it, then you feel like you belong. This became a replacement behavior for me. I needed that replacement behavior for the character trait, to find that character trait of love in my life. Dr. Chapman says that you should find a significant other to practice these love languages with. Again, I'm in uncharted territory. I'm single. Who am I supposed to love, Dr. Chapman? And I realized I can love everybody. you're not with your significant other 24/7. I don't know anybody that is. Some people don't want to be, and they're really happy not to be with their significant other 24/7. So it's part-time loving situation, according to what Dr. Chapman had written. Now I had the circumstance, though, that just to the very task to love everyone I came in contact with was consistent. I needed that consistency. I needed that loving consistency, and I needed to have that ability to have that purpose be something that carried me throughout the day, and it really worked. It changed the whole behavior of and practicing that. I feel like I can say that I'm a person that loves people now. I feel like I can say I'm a love language linguist because by rolling the die over just a 30-day period, I learned all love languages to give it away. And the best part about that is that it increased my vision that when it comes my way, I can see it. It improved my communication skills so I can see it when it comes my way. Even if it's not my primary love language, I can say, oh, they're loving on me, and then I can respond appropriately to that. So that's kind of where I came from and how I found my own imposter syndrome.
That's imposter syndrome aside for a moment. That's a really inspiring story. And I wonder if we could back up for a moment, because you talked about growing up with anger. And I wonder, how did you realize, because anger, when it's ever present, is kind of just your norm, right? So how did you realize it was a problem? Was it something that other people were telling you was a problem? Is it something that you were just felt like you were uncomfortable in it? Like, how did you know, okay, I have to do something different now?
I think that's a great question, Kim, but I think it's pretty evident when you're offending people, there's a problem. I pardon the example, but this is probably one of the best examples. If someone's in a swimming pool and they have an accident in a swimming pool, it repels everybody. Everybody scatters. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. The person's just left all alone by themselves. Oh, well, yeah, there's the culprit. And when that happens, it's totally embarrassing and you feel isolated and nobody wants to be around you. That's how I felt when I was angry. And it's easy to read that.
That's a great example. And I'm curious because anger is interesting. Anger is complicated because there's the learned behavior that you're describing. But I also sometimes think of anger also as an expression of our own self-worth. And there's, this is an overgeneralization, but there's research that shows that based on socialization, women are more likely to turn their anger inward and men are more likely to turn their anger externally to the world. And I wonder if you see that as being the case. Like, did you feel like your anger was a function of, or somehow intertwined with, your own self-worth? And did you have to do that kind of work to get to where you are today?
Great question, Kim. I don't think it was connected to my self-worth so much as I didn't feel like I had to put people down to raise myself up. Never. I really never felt like that. I really never was trying to do anything like that. I know that there are people that do that they get angry because they want control of the situation. I really never felt like that was an object of my anger. What my anger, and as I traced it back a little bit, and to be able to overcome something, you kind of have to trace it back. Well, where does it start? And I realized that what my anger started was from just being annoyed at something somebody else was doing. And when I realized that, I'm hardly ever annoyed at myself, Kim. Well, one time I was so annoyed at myself, I didn't talk to myself for 3 days. What I found, Kim, was that I was being annoyed at other people and what they were doing and their choices that they were doing when I had absolutely no control over their choices. I had no control over their life. When I realized that that's what I was doing, I was trying to overlay my experience and my better choices elevating myself, and I guess that would be elevating myself above them, saying I know a better way, and just trying to say, what's wrong with you? Why don't you do it the right way? Or something like that. When I'm annoyed at somebody for that reason, I realized I was out of my lane.
Mm.
Not in my control, not in my purview, should not be in my purview, but somehow we take that into our purview, thinking that that's my domain when it's not. And once I realized that, you got to stay in your own lane, stay in your domain, and just choose to do what you're going to do. Send out what you're going to send out. If you're going to be loving, send out love. And if that's who you want to be, make sure it happens all the time. And by doing that, what I'm watching for when I'm rolling the die and practicing that particular love language on that day, I'm watching for people to light up. When they light up, bingo, I've discovered either what their primary or a secondary love language is. No longer, Kim, do you have to say, excuse me, could you pause this relationship for a minute so I can have you take this survey so I know how to love you? We're done with awkward. Don't have to do that anymore. So we don't, it's just a better way.
One of my favorite things about what you're describing is that it's very action oriented. And I think a lot of times we think that we change our mindsets first and then our behavior changes. But I think it's actually the opposite of that. I think committing to changing your behavior actually changes your mindset. And I wonder if you can speak to that, because one of the things that I think about is it takes a lot of self-discipline to commit to something different than your default approach to the world. And especially when you're learning something new, it's uncomfortable. It's not even just uncomfortable. Sometimes you just forget to do it. And so I wonder how do you think about the process of engaging in this behavior and how it changed yourself, your mindset, and how you stayed focused during that time?
Great questions, Kim. Let me start with the mindset part of it first. I realized what the mindset was that I did not want to have, and I needed a new behavior. But that new behavior, whatever it was, that new behavior had to be something that had to do all the time, something that had to be consistent, something that would keep me so busy that I would not backslide into that old mindset, backslide just out of habit, knee-jerk reaction, back into the annoyance, and then be stacking those annoyances to get that flash of anger. So I needed something that was just persistent in that way. And what I found is that instead of looking at the 10 to 20, maybe 5% of a person that is maybe uncultured, maybe unrefined, that those mistakes, those faults we all have, instead of focusing on that, I realized I'm missing 80 to 90% of the good that people are doing. I'm focusing on the minority of that person.
Mm.
So when I realized that, then I just changed my focus. I've changed it from what's wrong with that person or what faults do they have, and quit looking for that, because guess what? That's a bad boomerang that's coming right back at you. And you don't want it, because those boomerangs could take your head off, and it could hurt really bad. It could be 10 times worse than what you send out. So quit focusing on that, start focusing on the good. That paradigm shift was really fairly easy to do once I saw that that's what I needed to do to replace that behavior. And as I'm rolling the die and watching for what's right about that person, what can I love about that person, I'm so busy, absolutely so busy with that 80 to 90% of the good that people have. One person has so many good things. I'm watching, and trying to express those good things that I'd never seen before, or never iterated before, or just hadn't had an opportunity to focus on those things before. And got so excited about that. They're lighting up all along the way. When they're lighting up, I've made their day. And now that made my day, that I made somebody else's day. So there's a payday involved there as well, that you're really getting that satisfaction of helping someone have a better day. When they have a better day, they're sending that out also to their circle of influence so that they'll have a better day. That makes it a whole lot more easier to keep focused and keep on that track of that paradigm shift. even though it's imposter syndrome, these are uncomfortable. Dr. Chapman probably said it the best way, that most people like to give away what they have as their primary love language in hopes that it'll come back. It's really a crapshoot that way, because there may be very few that have your same exact love language. This way, at least you've got a better chance every day. Every day, you're going to light somebody up in one genre of the love languages every single day. That's what you're watching for, and that's what you live for. But it'll be several times a day when you come upon maybe service. Maybe people light up when, I'm going to wash your car, Kim, today. I'm going to vacuum your carpets for you. How's that going to make you feel? See, you're lighting up right now. You those ideas. I can tell that would be fun for you, for someone to say that they're going to do that. That's what you're watching for. That's what keeps you motivated to keep on the track. The second thing that kept me motivated is the variety. I love spice life. This variety is the spice of life, and I really believe that rolling the die and changing the venue, changing the type of love that you're sending out all day, every day, really helps you stretch your imagination to those love languages. They're going to be uncomfortable if it's not your particular love language for the first 30 days. After you get used to sending out, then you'll get more creative about what could I do for service? What could I do for creatively for physical touch? You could make a handshake, a creative handshake with a friend. I envy those people that have those creative handshakes. Very fun to watch. That's a perfect way of physical touch. You're developing a bond with that person in that way. So there's creativity that also spurs you as you're going along this path that may be foreign soil, where you'll feel that imposter syndrome as well.
I love this. And I'm wondering, especially because you talk about the imposter syndrome, it's really hard to change when the people around you aren't changing or don't necessarily know what you're doing. So how open were you with the people closest to you about your commitment to making this change? And did you find, like, particularly with your family, was there any resistance, skepticism? How did they relate to you as you were changing on this path?
So, Kim, that's a great question. Would you like a person in your family that's angry person, or would you like someone that's loving? And if they're trying to change to loving, what kind of resistance are you going to have if they were angry before? I mean, zero resistance. Absolutely zero resistance, because they want you to be better. And it's interesting that way, that once you get to that point that you are better, then now they're saying, oh, you're not that great, and they're trying to tear you back down. And it's awful in that way, but it's just kind of reality that here you are, you're trying to be better. You get there, and now they're trying to tear you back down. It's like crabs in a bucket. They have those little hook, those little pinchers. They'll pull each other back down. They don't want one crab crawling out of the bucket. I mean, we're using each other as a stair step to get out of the bucket, but they don't want each other out of the bucket. They'll pull them right back down, and then they have to start all over, climbing up again.
Did anyone ask you about it? Did you find that anyone was interested in adopting your approach?
In the family, that's a great question, though. In the family, there's not a lot of my children. Each one of them have a die. Each one of them have the cube in their family. The extent of the use of it, I don't know that it's very extensive. I haven't heard a lot of feedback from them. They just think, oh, that's dad's thing, and yeah, that's just his journey. But I do have a son that was rolling it one day. One day he rolled gifts, and he says, yeah, that's the hardest one. I don't want to do that. And then he said, I'm not going to do that. Rolled it again. It was gifts again. Rolled it third time. It's gifts again. Oh, he's so exasperated. Rolled it the fourth time. It's gifts. Says, okay. But I look at gifts a whole lot differently. I looked at gifts. Gifts is kind of the umbrella for all the love languages. And really, I've tried to be creative as possible about doing things that don't cost money. Of course, you can go buy something that is a gift, but try to be creative about things that don't cost money. A smile or even a hug could be a gift.
Mm.
That would be a touch. So like I'm saying it was umbrella because it could be the words. You could send a note. There was a couple I was working with that he knew that she did not like gifts according to the love language test, but she liked words. One day he rolled the gifts. He said, "What the heck am I going to do?" And he thought, "I'll write her a note." He
Mm.
put the note in a gift. She unwrapped it and was absolutely delighted for the note in the gift. So it does. You have to be a little bit creative about it. So words could be a gift as well. Just hanging out with someone, spending your time with them could be a gift. Serving someone, making dinner for them could be a gift. They all are encompassed in gifts. So just when you're thinking about or dreading maybe rolling the gift one, think of it that it really encompasses everything, that anything is game for a gift, but make it something that is from you. Something that's store bought doesn't mean as much as something from the heart. So just remember that when you're giving gifts. And I've found that that the family members that do practice it are really doing a lot better. Those that don't are still about the same.
Mm. I like the way you describe that because I do think gifts on the surface makes you think money. It feels expensive, and so it's you're right. It's always more meaningful to get something from the heart than get a gift card from someplace, right?
Those are nice too. I like gift cards. I get a badge that says my love language is gift cards.
I have a question for you because love languages, this concept has been around for some time, but it's, at least in my view, it's only recently been talked about in the context of work. And I think the word love kind of complicates it when you think about the workplace and interacting with your colleagues. Can you talk a little bit about how do we overcome maybe some of the skepticism or some of the feelings of awkwardness or inappropriateness that come up for us as we think about applying this in the workplace as opposed to in our personal lives?
Absolutely. Great question, Kim. And I think that when people hear the word love, they may immediately go to what the movies show that's a sexual encounter. And I think that that's the problem, that if that's where your mind is going, obviously that doesn't apply in the workplace, and therefore love doesn't apply in the workplace. But I look at it a whole lot differently. What we're trying to build here is a decency and a vision of what people, the goodness of people in any situation. It's different than any sexual attraction at all. It's the goodness, downright good-heartedness of everyone, and everybody has good in them, and we're watching for that good. It's not about sexual at all. It's about just being decent to one another. And I think that in the workplace, it really needs to be that way. That does not need to be a hostile environment. In fact, Kim, I think that you could become a love language linguist. It's a sexy title. I know you want it. You want to put that on your resume. And when you go to that employer, the employer's going to say, "What the heck is a love language linguist?" And you're going to say, "I just love people." They want their customers love, and they want a loving environment within the workplace, a decent environment within the workplace, not a hostile environment. They want a loving environment. Your resume should rise to the top because of just those two things, just that answer. That's what we're looking for in the workplace. We're looking for high five, fist bumps, pats on the back, above the waist, obviously. And those are that's the type of touch we're looking in the workplace. You can do things for other people in the workplace. If you're fast and finish your work, you can go to someone else, help them with their job, help them finish their work. I think there needs to be that cooperation within the workplace. Think of it as in customer service situation. You're being kind to that customer, even though they might be yelling. I think a calm voice to that customer is really going to calm them down and be more. It's going to be more productive. And the customer service, they'll remember that. They'll remember the calm voice. They'll remember the goodness that they felt when calling into customer service. Maybe they'll call more often. Maybe have more customer service calls. But it seems to me that you'll have a whole lot less because satisfaction will be achieved by helping the customer achieve what they desire to achieve. And I think that it works in customer service, it works in the sales situation. If you can see a love language, see all the love languages of different customers that you're selling, you've got some buttons that you can push that can really kind of bring the sale to you at that point in time. So across the whole spectrum, any part of the business sector really can use these love languages in the basic form they're in. What I found, Kim, with the stacking that I was doing to annoyances, I found the same thing was true that the stacking of kindnesses will get you to higher levels or a higher level of love. And those, as you're stair stepping those kindnesses, you're going to get to compassion. You're going to get to charity. You're going to get to that forgiveness or that empathy or intimacy or sympathy. You're going to get to those higher laws. Who ever heard of somebody insulting, and then they get forgiveness? It does not happen that way. It's kindness, 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 and then possibly forgiveness is going to happen. It's just that same stair stepping, only a different direction. That's what this roll of love die has done for me, is helped me stair step to get to the better part of life, which would be those higher laws of love.
And the power of what you're describing is so multifaceted, because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about the personal benefit. And you talked about that too, in terms of, the feeling you get when you know that you have made someone else feel good. And our brains are wired in such a way that we see what we focus on, right? And so if you're looking for the positives in other people, that's what you're going to experience. Not that you're never going to be angry or frustrated again, but you're more likely to notice, as you described, all of the positive things that you may be overlooking when you're looking through a different lens. And then what I also love about what you're describing is we often feel, at least I do, that we have very little power or control in a world that's so negative and so hostile and angry all the time. And this feels like a way in which we can control our environment, and that the contagious effect of what you're describing. I know every one of us has been in a situation where maybe you're having a bad day and someone else smiles at you or says something nice to you, and it just changes your mood instantly. Or you're having a great day and someone cuts you off in traffic, and now you can't get it out of your head, right? That power to just do something so small but so meaningful can really have a ripple effect around us.
Absolutely, Kim. I love that that analogy too. That this really is a small investment, 2 seconds a day. We all are geared to make small investments and hope for a huge return. This is one of those things that absolutely you're going to get a huge return for a tiny investment of 2 seconds a day that sets the theme for the day. This is going to burn into your mind. It's a picture, and there's no words on it. It's a picture. If I say the word elephant, you're not seeing ELEPHNT in your mind. You're seeing the picture. These are the memory hooks. You'll remember what you're doing all day long. And that's by doing that, it's really gonna be able to be that impetus for you. And anger can be the impetus, as it was for me. I was angry about where I was, not being able to do love regularly as I wanted to. Became that impetus for me to move on, become that better person.
Where does anger fit into your life now? Because it's impossible to live a life without any anger. There's a reason why anger exists. So when you get angry now, how do you know that this is a really not the right way to say this, but the right kind of anger, as opposed to more of the habitual anger that you experienced in the past?
I think the right kind of anger actually motivates you to do something good. The bad type of anger motivates you to do something bad and to think ill of another person, or to curse or to do something unkind. The right anger motivates you to do the right thing.
I like that. I think that's true. A lot of good has come out of anger, right? That you just get fed up and you just decide, I'm going to do something different for a better outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. This has been such a fascinating conversation, Paul. It sounds like these dice are available, right? Where can people find you and your work if they're interested in learning more?
Well, the dice are available. I do have for people that like to record what they rolled, opportunities they saw to love in that way. I have a journal that it's kind of a journal with prompts. I found that when I've ever written in a journal, if it's a blank page, my mind goes blank. This is a purposeful journal. It's all about love. They can write what they rolled, opportunities they saw to love in that way, what they did about those opportunities. Becomes a love legacy journal. I would have loved to have a journal like that from my mother, Kim, or my grandmother. Instead, I got a journal about the weather. The weather! 60 years ago. What the weather was like 60 years ago. If I wanted to read the almanac 60 years ago, I would have done it already. This is more meaningful, and it's going to be a lot better. So I've got the journal, I've got the book I've written about this, and then I've got the die. I've got it in a bundle package that is about 20% off for your listeners right now. They can go to my website, rolloflove.com, ROLE of love.com. One thing on the play on words, it's ROLL is what you do to the cube outside of you. ROLE is what changes you within. So if you really are ready for this change, this is something that will work for you. You have to be ready. If you're not ready to make the change, if you're not wanting to make the change, it's not going to happen for you. You've got to really want this and then just commit to do it. 2 seconds a day. Who can't commit to 2 seconds a day? Seriously? It's less than $30, $29.99, a whole lot less than any therapy session you can find out there.
That's a very good point, Paul. Thank you. We'll link to that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing these insights with us. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you, Kim. It's been a delight to be with you today.
Thanks so much for listening to the Impostor Syndrome Files. If you would like to continue this conversation in a safe and trusted space, I would love for you to join my virtual discussion group every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. For the past several years, the group has been limited to women, but it is now open, regardless of gender, to anyone who is interested in exploring and troubleshooting common workplace challenges, building better awareness of ourselves and others, and becoming more inclusive allies at work. Check out the show notes for more info on how to find us, and please join us next week for another episode of the Impostor Syndrome Files.